You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. We're the show that tries to help you with some bite-sized, easy-to-understand ideas for ways to take your leadership to another level and hopefully improve the team environment you've got, the culture that you're growing at your business, and problems you may be facing. Today, my guest is actually a repeat. He's coming back for round number 2. His name is Scott Anderson. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug. It's great to be back with you.
Yeah, in the first time we did this, and it's been a good bit a while back, we focused on the topic of burnout, and I will put a link to that original show in our show notes, folks, for your convenience to kind of connect the dots with Scott, because there may be a little bit of what we talked about then that's going to bleed over into what we're going to do today. But basically, we're going to shift gears just slightly because Scott, in his own work, has shifted gears a little bit too. We're going to talk about sort of that concept of flattening out. I think we all have struggled with it from time to time. We work hard, we play hard, we try to get things done, but inevitably you hit some kind of plateau. And for a season, it feels like it doesn't matter what you do, you just can't get off that plateau or bust through the invisible wall, whatever metaphor you want to use. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about your turning of your focus into this,
Sure.
Overcoming the flatline idea.
Yeah, well, you described it really well, Doug. I've launched 10 companies and sold 8 and gone through many plateaus along the way. And as you say, sometimes it's just a season where it feels like there's nothing you can do. But we really started focusing on this to begin with in our work with burned out small and medium-sized business owners, folks who were just exhausted and felt like they didn't have the energy or the passion anymore to do what they needed to do. And more recently, in the last couple of years, the economy has been great to some folks and more challenging to others. But what we found with a lot of small and medium-sized business owners is that they do run into a season of a plateau. And but what's not plateauing, unfortunately, is our lifestyle costs, and our children need to go to college, or we need to retire, or any number of things. And inflation, of course, is a fact in our lives. So our businesses may be plateauing, but our costs are not plateauing. So we've been really focusing on this with a program called CEO Breakthrough. And the main idea behind it is that with small to medium-sized businesses, where I really focus, and I think where your show really focuses, is it's a unique animal. And the impact that the CEO, founder, owner can have is outsized. The problem is that almost without being aware of it, we get sucked into the weeds so deep that we don't get to spend any time doing the things that'll move the needle farthest and fastest for our business anymore. And it plateaus. And this has been compounded with COVID and with super low unemployment and a very stressed workplace environment where it's just almost impossible to find anybody to do anything. And so as entrepreneurs who are always willing to do whatever it takes, we jump in, and before long we realize that we're not doing the things that used to move the needle for us. So what we preach is a concept called Genius Zone. And in fact, if any of your listeners are interested, we offer a free Genius Zone assessment process. But basically what it does is to look at the work preferences and the genius zone, the place where the owner, we each of us can do maybe 2 or 3 things exceptionally well, and the other 98 things we just have to do sometimes because we can't find the teams we need, or it's an emergency. But if we can spend what we shoot for in our Genius Zone process is to try to get our clients to spend 10 hours a week in their Genius Zone. And I'm not sure if that sounds like a lot or a little, but we start out by asking our clients to do a time audit and to really write down where they're spending every minute. not looking at their calendars, which always look pristine and organized, but look at where we actually do spend our time. And then we ask them to highlight any 15-minute block where they're spending in their genius zone. And for most small to medium-sized business owners, that zone includes strategy, creating high-level strategy for the future of your business. It involves talking to customers and prospective customers about their bleeding neck problems, what their big challenges are right now. As a coach friend of mine likes to say, we want to sell them yachts, but what they need is life rafts. So what is the life raft that they need right now, especially in the current economy, in the current environment, the way things really are right this moment? Because when we're sucked into the weeds, 98% of the time, we lose touch with our customers. And we don't get to have visionary conversations with them. So anyway, what our process helps small and medium-sized businesses do is to carve out 10 hours a week. And again, to some that'll sound like an eternity, to others it'll sound like nothing. But 10 hours is usually about 10 times more time than the owner is currently spending in their genius zone. And what we want them to do, even if it's only 5 hours a week, is to spend an hour a day setting the vision for their business, thinking about their business in a competitive way. And that all starts by talking to your current customers and finding out what their new problem now is. It's because it's not the problem it was 6 months ago, and it's not the problem it was a year ago. And a lot of times our revenue is plateauing and our businesses are stalling because we're solving problems that aren't as relevant as the new problem now. And what we found is that is by far the fastest, best way for folks to break out of plateaus. And not only financial plateaus, but also mindset plateaus. Mm-hmm. It's like the grass growing before we know it, the grass is long and we've sort of lost track of it. And it's like that in our businesses too. We spend so much time in the weeds that we forget that it really takes, if we could just spend an hour a day in our genius zone, it'll really move the needle.
It really is a function of having that periodic sort of gut check, mind check, and recalibrate your thinking about what you're doing and how you're doing it, because it is so easy to get sucked into that vortex of what feels like urgent demand for your time and attention.
Exactly.
And I have lost count of the number of entrepreneurs I've dealt with, going all the way back to my banking days, who, are clearly incredibly busy people. You just have to shadow them for a half a day and you see busyness. But the question is any of that contributing to the greater good and really moving the needle for the business
Exactly.
they're trying to build? It almost becomes a kind of a comfort zone, not a genius zone.
Yes, exactly. Well put. Yeah, and the more stressed we are, we're human beings, and the more we look for ways to soothe our stress. This kind of goes back to the research we've done on workplace burnout, specifically for business owners. But we're just human, and we tend to go, when we're stressed or panicked, we tend to go to the areas that make us feel the most calm. But as you say, it may be comfortable, but it's not going to move the needle for your business.
Right. And you were saying something early on in what you described there. You talked about, when you do try to get a new client to embrace this idea of figuring out their genius zone, you say, look at your calendars. And when you were describing that, I thought to myself, well, I've had several clients recently where we've engaged and started work, and I'll go to their place of business, and they'll be talking about this busyness and this, all this effort and all this tug on their time and everything. And I'll say, well, show me your calendar.
Yeah.
And they'll turn their screen around, and lo and behold, they don't have anything on the calendar. There's nothing intentionally scheduled other than, maybe it was, I dealt with a home builder, he had to go to a closing. Okay, that was on the calendar.
Exactly.
And it's like, wow, no wonder you're feeling out of control because you don't even take the time to track and look at the demand on your time.
Exactly. Yeah, so true. And this is the blessing and the curse. The freedom that we have as entrepreneurs is the ability to set our own schedules and kind of react that way. But what we ask our clients to do two things. Just like you, we ask them, I want to look at your calendar. I want to see where you really truly are spending your time. Number one. Number two, what I find is that there is always 30 minutes, if not an hour a day, to spend working on leading indicators. And that's the second thing we ask about are leading versus lagging indicators. And so many of our business owners live in the world of lagging indicators, basically net income and what they can spend. The problem, however, especially if net income is plateaued or declining, is we're not paying attention to leading indicators, especially not the leading indicator of building our business and looking at not only at sales and increasing sales, but also increasing gross margin. And we can be lulled into a false sense of security. Unfortunately, the problems that we're solving today won't be the same problems most of us are solving 6 months from now. And if you're building homes, you're building homes, and that's the constant. But what's not staying constant, as we all know, are interest rates, workforce availability, supply chain problems, especially
Cost of
financing,
materials,
all the rest. Yeah. So this is why we really encourage our clients to spend at least a half an hour a day looking at the big picture and looking at leading indicators. And for small to medium-sized businesses, if the owner is not having conversations with customers and prospective customers every day, and this will sound insane to some folks, but every day, you're going to lose sight of the customer and you're going to become irrelevant. It doesn't seem possible. But every day we don't spend on the firing line. Every week, month, year, we don't spend checking for the new problem. Now we're at risk of losing relevance to our competitors. So and it's not that much of an investment to make. I did a video yesterday, and I'm sort of ashamed of myself. The video was called 2 hours and 27 minutes, and the statistic you've probably heard is that the average American spends 2 hours and 27 minutes a day on their phones in social media. That's a staggering number. And there's some folks, obviously, who spend a lot more. And it's gone up and up through COVID. It's now kind of leveled off. But what that tells us is that each of us have an average of 2 hours and 27 minutes. In fact, when I posted this on LinkedIn, I said, here's how you can save a lot of time. Don't watch this video. But it's really true. All of us have, at least a fraction of the time we spend on our phones to be proactively talking to our customers and mainly listening. And just what is their pain? What is their bleeding neck problem? What is it really truly? And we can pivot even in a week's time. I've seen businesses pivot by doing this 1 hour a day Genius Zone work. I've seen businesses pivot not only in terms of their pipeline filling up with proposals and sales, but also with the mindset of the owner completely flip-flopping. But again, we're in an echo chamber usually, unless they're working with you or with me. They're in an echo chamber.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that about that relationship with the customers. And as you were describing that, I was reflecting and it hit me. I just had a little bit of an epiphany. I probably need to go do a deep dive and ask myself what I'm putting out there. I seem to attract owner founders that are so off in the visionary realm of their idea for their business. Yeah. They don't want to talk to customers. They want to hire others to do that for them. They know they need it to make the business work because, surprise, your customers pay the bills. But when you challenge them about that idea, have you sat down and talked? And I've had one owner literally tell me, I know I suck at dealing with clients, and I need other people to do that for me. And my pushback to him was, Well, yeah, but you're the founder of this. People
Yeah,
at your level of business, people want to believe they have access to the founder because
exactly.
that is the business for at least for some period of time. And there's a kind of a crossing over the bridge and get to the middle of, between the
Yeah,
owner, founder, visionary, and the customer demand.
right.
And if you're, to your point, if you're not really listening and hearing what the customers are talking about, your idea may not be the right one at all.
Exactly. And sometimes I think as owners, I mean, we're always thinking about cash flow and payroll and all of those things, and we should be. But we would never entrust, we would never delegate, well, at some level, we hopefully can, but most small to medium-sized business folks don't delegate managing cash flow and don't, they're intimately involved with that activity. They know what's going on for the most part. If they don't, they should be. But really, the relationship with our customers is even more precious and valuable than our cash flow, or it's certainly a good predictor of what our cash flow is going to be. And so we really, I think, to risk delegating that is it's very much like saying, to a junior person, well, listen, you keep track of cash flow. I'm gonna take my eye off that ball. If we take our eye off the customer, I think it may not happen today or tomorrow, but sooner or later it's doomed because we keep going to market with yachts when that's not what the market wants. They want life rafts, to use that metaphor. And so really the most valuable asset we have is customers who know, like, and trust us enough to tell them what their biggest challenges are. That to me is the single most, you can't put a price on it and you can't quite calculate it. But if you don't have customers that are willing to tell you what's really bothering them, then you're in deep financial jeopardy.
Well, let's shift gears and go back to one of the earlier points you made about the notion of tracking leading indicators, not lagging indicators. Just for kind of clarity's sake, give us a couple of examples of some key lead indicators an owner ought to be thinking about.
Exactly. Well, one of them is one of the ones we talked about, and that is talk to your customers. If you're the fastest, easiest way to grow your business profitably is by selling more services and products to existing customers. There is no faster, more profitable, easier way to do that than to do that. So if we're not having conversations to begin with our customers, we're at risk of losing the business that we have, and we have no chance of building our business by discovering new problems and new solutions. So that to me is kind of the definitive lead indicator. The question that I ask my clients is, how often have I talked to my best customer? When was the last time I talked to them? When was the last time I had a meaningful conversation? And it's difficult because some of us are introverts, but we really do have to be willing to develop the depth of relationships where our clients are willing, who trust us enough to talk to us about what really bothers them, what's keeping them up at night. If we don't understand that, then one of our competitors probably does. So the number one leading indicator is how often are we talking to our customers? If the lagging indicator that we're looking for is to break through a plateau, either a sales or net profit plateau, then the leading indicator needs to be conversations that we're having with people who can that know us, like us, and trust us, and who can say yes to a proposal. The next leading indicator is how many proposals do we have out there? If you've got 0 proposals out there, no matter how informally or formally you make them, if you are not bringing people to a yes/no point, then that's the super strong leading indicator for when I talk to my clients whose businesses have plateaued. I say, okay, well, what does your pipeline look like? And if they don't know what the pipeline even is, we're in trouble. But if they look at their pipeline and say, yeah, I've got 0 proposals out right now. Now that's a leading indicator we got to fix right now. If we don't get people to at least, if we're not in danger of them saying yes, if we don't at least give them the opportunity to say yes, we're never going to go anywhere. So, I mean, there are lots of them, but those are the ones that I think of, especially for business owners whose businesses are plateaued.
Well, I have had experience with several clients of late who they're more in the trades area, electricians, plumbers, HVAC,
Exactly.
constructors, installers, and such. And the interesting dynamic, most of them report, if I had to do a broad brush summary of challenge, their pipelines are healthy. It's not a lead gen proposal out in the field issue for them. Their big struggle is identifying talent to staff those
Absolutely.
jobs.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
well, I was just going to say, they may have a core team that has been with them a long time, and they've been successful at doing some things on the front end of the classic sales funnel to get the word out about their work and their reputation, and they are getting contract opportunities, but then when they put it on the job board, they don't have enough techs to go do the work.
I do a lot of work in that space as well. In fact, I used to own a construction equipment distribution company. So we're selling everything from hand tools to excavators, and we have a lot of clients in the contractor space. And the ones that are doing the best today, their number one leading indicator is what is the pipeline with applicants. So I did a leadership retreat for this company. They've done two really brilliant things. One of them is that they have carved out a niche in a very specific area of the construction trade. They used to be general flat work concrete contractors, curb and gutter and parking lots and everything you can imagine. But over time, they focused on the niche of multi-story parking garages because there are very few people who can do that well. There are very few people who can do it, period, but there are very few people who can do it well. And because their objective was to get to a point where they had pricing power, where they could actually state the price and it wasn't commoditized anymore the way it was for curb and gutter and surface parking lots, which means that they can go to a job and say, here's our bid, and the general contractor may not like it, but on the other hand, there's no one who can do it as well. So they focus on their two leading indicators. It's so interesting. The number one is the pipeline of talent. And they spend most of their time. One of the reasons why they realized they had to form a niche and have pricing power is because they knew that they were going to have to pay more to get the best people. And that's, you can't. And the other part of it is that they transform their culture from an old school construction culture, which I was brought up in, where you just yell at people, basically. And to one that a millennial and Gen Z workforce will stand for. And so what this guy has done is create a culture where there isn't yelling and screaming. They don't tolerate it. It's really a different model completely. He told me the other day, and I live in Omaha, Nebraska, where the unemployment rate is 2.8. There's nobody to do anything, especially in construction. But he's got a pipeline of 50 guys, mainly guys, who he is actively talking to. Now, he has very little turnover. A lot of people want to work there because the thing that he's marketed more than his concrete business is what a great place it is to work. Mm-hmm. So everybody who can do that kind of work, and there aren't a lot of people, it's very specialized to be able to pump concrete up 6 stories and so on. All those folks want to work for them. It's like playing for the Yankees or whoever you like. That's the team they want to be on.
Yeah.
That's his lead indicator, is how deep is our pipeline.
Yeah.
The other part is safety scores, safety mods, because the generals want to work for him because his safety scores are so much better than everybody else.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I think that notion of growing the right culture, and I had a guest on my show recently who introduced me to the idea, and I was one of those many who have worked in the leadership development realm, and we talk about building culture for businesses. That's just kind of how we've all evolved. That's the terminology. But my guest encouraged me to do away with that. And the argument being, you don't really build a culture, you have to grow a culture.
Yeah.
And he used a construction analogy. You can build a house or a building, but culture is not like that. Exactly. Culture is more like a farm. You have to till the soil and prepare the earth and get everything ready to plant your crop and see it grow. And then as it begins growing, you have to nurture it and treat it and help it and feed it and so forth. And his argument was that that's a much more definitive definition of how culture comes about. Is the notion of growing it. And it starts with those things like attitudes. We're not going to tolerate yelling at each other.
Exactly.
We're not going to do
Exactly. It's, the thing with culture, I completely agree. And especially with Gen Y and Gen Z workforce, they can see bullshit a mile away. And so when companies slap mission, vision, and values on their company, or and then try to tell folks, kind of like Moses down from the mountain, here's the 12 commandments, I hope you like them. That just doesn't work with the Gen Z, Gen Y workforce. They're very cynical, and rightfully so. So the key isn't the big unveil or any big event, but it's what you do every single day. It's the consistency of what you do every single day and allowing no exceptions. So this guy who I mentioned, who's got this fantastic multi-story parking lot business, he has to fire very talented people sometimes. And that's painful in this market. But that's one of the reasons why his number one leading indicator is the pipeline of applicants, because he knows that if he allows one person to defy their culture, it'll unravel in a week. So it's the consistency every day, every day, every day, every day. And it's one of the reasons why he's created this niche for himself. So he has pricing power and he can pay his people more and he can really attract the best and the brightest, but he can also let them go. If they're not culture fits, he's learned that you've really got to let them go as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah. Well, and everything you just said goes to the basic notion. The other really fundamental definition of the culture is not the words on the wall, but how you do things moment by moment and day by day.
Yeah.
And for the owner, founder, visionary to not worry so much about the words that are going to be on the mission vision statement in the employee handbook, but rather they're going to think about, how do I want to work today?
Exactly.
And I know another GC and general contractor in Florida. When I got to meet him and we were kind of touring the business and talking, I said, so what do you deem as company value? And he said, we only have one, do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, good words. And I said, so talk to me. How does that really manifest itself? He said, oh, it's everywhere. Yeah. I said, okay, again, elaborate. And, he got to talking about, I treat my people right and my superintendents treat their people right. And when it comes to customer interaction, the general contractor world is full of situations where you've got a cost overrun in this part of a project, so you want to pad a number over in another part of the project to make up the difference. And he said, we don't do that. He said we're totally transparent with our customers, our developers that hire us. And, this guy's more in the commercial space. They build those big, I think his smallest footprint is usually about 20,000 square feet.
Right.
And the developers that are putting those facilities together, he said, they love me. He said, I'm not afraid to eat something if we made a mistake.
Sure. But one of the things that gives him, again, I mean, the number one currency, I think, in all business right now is trust, especially trust from our employees in us to really serve them and to do the right thing 100% of the time, or to fix it when we break it. But it's the other side. It's with our customers. And this is what gives, I've got another contractor in Los Angeles who builds buildings mainly school buildings. But he has pricing power because the trust that the trust in this case that the owner has in him is that it means that the owner can sleep at night because he absolutely knows, because this guy is very much like the contractor you're describing. He does the right thing no matter what. And that gives, but it's not entirely Well, it serves the business also. He has pricing power as a result. That trust is worth a premium to his
Right.
customers.
Right.
And when there is so much demand in particular, he's not a commodity. And he
Right.
is managing his lead indicators so well, including cash flow and everything else, that
Yeah.
he can say no with impunity and walk away and decline to bid a project if there's not a fit with the owner, or if the money's not right, or if the project's not right. But you have to get your leading indicators really under control to give yourself that kind of power.
Yeah. No, you're right. And using this guy I'm talking about, a part of his deal, he said he's never the lowest bidder on jobs,
Exactly.
and often he is the highest bidder,
Yeah,
but he still wins. And to your point, it's because he's built a reputation of trust and integrity with his
exactly.
clients. They're willing to pay that extra freight just
Yeah,
to know that they're going to have that surety from him as a GC coming in and taking these things on. And he doesn't just have that one attribute. He's got a very good marks on his safety and his deliverability, his
yeah,
ability to hit deadlines and come in under budget, all of those things, all those
exactly.
parameters that developers and property owners look for when they're building something. He's got all of that going on too. So
Exactly. Well, it's the mistakes and the delays, whether it's because of a mistake in the construction, or whether it's a supply chain issue or a labor issue or whatever. It's the mistakes. Owners know it's those kinds of mistakes that are going to make the difference between a project penciling out and not penciling out, which is so the other lead indicator that I mentioned for this parking lot contractor is that, or parking garage contractor, is the safety mods. And it's for a million reasons. But from a customer facing perspective, when he's got a much lower safety mod than anybody else, or in other words, he has many fewer accidents than anybody else, that represents lots of good things for the owner. It also represents, obviously, for my client, the ability to buy workers' comp insurance more economically. And bottom line, he wants his workers to be healthy.
yeah,
One of the things I really love about this guy also is that he's very candid. He tells these guys, look, you're not going to do this past 60. You're not going to. And most of you won't do it past 55. So just forget about that, because your body's going to give out. And they do a lot of things to ensure not just safety, but that from an ergonomic standpoint, that everybody's taking care of themselves health-wise. But what the main thing that he's preaching to these guys is saving, 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 saving. Because you're not going to do this when you're 60. You're just not going to do it. Your back and your knees and so on aren't going to have it. So he has the max match on a 401k. I believe it's 7% is the max. But and he matches every single dollar he gives them, whether it's a bonus or a salary or whatever. But what he also does, and I just participated in this leadership event, he brought in investment planners who can talk to folks who are not sophisticated financially, but they spend lots and lots of time explaining that, look, you're not going to do this till you're 65. You can't save at a rate assuming retirement at 65, because that's not going to happen. And it's that kind of candor and also that kind of caring, I think, but it isn't just one speech on one day. It's every day, every minute of everything he does, like your client who says, do the right thing.
yeah, that's great stuff. Well, Scott, I tell you what, I think we're about up on time. I really appreciate you sitting in and sharing these ideas with us. Tell people the best way to get a hold of you if they're interested in knowing more about your work.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'll give you a couple of links for the show notes about our Genius Zone assessment, and that's a free way we'll be able to tell you specifically what your Genius Zone is and how to get into it. But our company is called Double Dare, and our website is doubledareyou.us. And yeah, we'd love to hear from anybody who's interested. And
That's
again,
great.
the Genius Zone assessments are free. Great
All
talking
right.
to you, Doug.
Likewise, Scott, appreciate you coming back for round number 2, and looking forward.
Congratulations on 300 episodes. That's fantastic.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's a great milestone. Something when we started this a couple of years ago, wasn't sure where we were going to land up or where it was going to go. But yeah, we hit number 300 recently, so that was fun. Yeah. And folks, with that, I do want to remind you, we have a video version of this over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, take a look at the archive, and give us some feedback. Let us know if you've got an idea for a topic or a guest that would mean something to others. And for now, I think that's it. We're going to give it a wrap. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.